Welcome to a new video where I want to compare the Xperia 1 Mark V that I'm recording here right with the Apple iPhone 15 Pro Max. We want to do a video comparison, the one that you are used to already, 4K 60 frames per second. The Xperia can do 4K 120 frames per second, which the iPhone cannot do, but we just want to record 4K 60 frames per second and compare them with each other. So this is now the main camera sensor here on the Xperia 1 Mark V. What do you think about the quality? How good is HDR? How good are the colors? It's a bit of a gloomy day, so not much of the sun there. How good is stabilization here set to the high? Now recording with the camera of the iPhone 15 Pro Max, 4K 60 frames per second. How good is stabilization? HDR as well, even if it's a grayish kind of day. Maybe you see some blue there in the sky that wasn't visible on the Xperia. What do you think about this one here? And of course we can record 4K 60 and switch between lenses, so I can on the iPhone go to 0.6 times the ultra wide angle if I want to, which is quite nice as well. And then I also have the possibility to go and zoom on stuff, like for example this tower there in the background. 5 times zoom, directly jumped now, and let's go to 15 times. This is how 15 times zoom looks like on the iPhone. Pretty cool, isn't it? This is now the closest I can zoom with the Xperia 1 Mark V, 375 millimeters, and I can go back 4K 60 frames per second and reach now the 85 millimeters, which is the 3.5 times zoom, and I can go up to 105, which is now reached. So this is the 5 times zoom actually on the Xperia. What do you think? And I'm recording with the ultra wide angle at 4K 60 frames per second on the Xperia 1 Mark V. How does this look like? How is stabilization here? How is HDR here? Sometimes I have the feeling the ultra wide angle has a bit of better HDR than the main camera sensor. Am I right? And here's the front-facing video that can also do 4K 60 frames per second on the Sony Xperia 1 Mark V. Sadly, we don't have any autofocus, but how good is stabilization here? We only have standard stabilization, not high-quality stabilization here on the front-facing camera. But what do you think about HDR? There's a little bit of like clouds still in the background there. What do you think about the colors here of the front-facing camera of the Xperia 1 Mark V? And I'm recording 4K frames per second on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. As usual, it's looking very unstabilized because it is like doing the stabilization, not showing on the screen. So what do you think about this one here in terms of colors, in terms of stabilization, in terms of HDR? I don't see much of HDR going on. Maybe it is like also doing this in post, but what do you think about the front-facing camera of the iPhone 15 Pro Max? The cool thing is it has autofocus, so I can show you my lenses here on the Xperia 1 Mark V, which is quite nice. And it is probably very good for showing such things, and you want to see yourself for vlogging especially. What do you think about this one? What we can see when we compare them one by one, the main camera sensors, a bit more sharpened up look, a bit more contrasty look on the iPhone 15 Pro Max, a little bit less sharp, a little bit less blue in the background, both handling HDR pretty fine, a little bit less sharper picture on the Xperia 1 Mark V. Both look good. Which one do you like? When we switch to the ultra wide angle, we can see the same kind of contrasty and sharpened up look on the iPhone, but the punch of the colors is much more on the iPhone, much more realistic on the Xperia. Even though the Xperia has a much more narrow field of view, I prefer it here. When it comes to the zoom, the iPhone 15 Pro Max wins against the 1 Mark V for sure. More clarity, more sharpness, more contrast, just a better zoom picture. Selfie or vlogging style camera shows also more contrasty, more sharpened up look on the iPhone, but the Xperia seems to have a little bit softer look and also better HDR. And overall, I like the front-facing camera surprisingly well on the 1 Mark V, a little bit more than the over-sharpened, a bit more smartphone-y look on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. What do you think? Which one is the winner overall? Write it down in the comments.